Hi, welcome to Chez Les Fleur podcast, where we talk to women in business, making it happen, all the challenges, the great things that are going on, all the types of businesses women are involved in, and what they love and what sometimes brings you to your knees. Today, we have with us Sue Rankin, and she is an artist, and her medium is blown glass, which I don't know how anybody can look at a piece of blown glass and not be astounded because it is such a glorious art form. And we've got some. Sue, thank you for being with us today. We are excited to talk with you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm glad to. I'm glad to. You are an artist and your medium is glass. Tell us how you arrived at this as your career.
Oh, it's a long story. I started off in stained glass and had a stained glass business in Vancouver for a number of years, and then went to the Pilchuck School of Glass down in Stanwood, Washington, to actually take a fusing workshop to learn how to do some fusing. I did a whole line of fused glass jewelry for years and years. And there I saw glass blowing. And if you've ever watched Blown Away or glass blowing live and in person, it's pretty seductive. It's like a dance. And I was completely seduced. And so, long story short, I got into it, which ended up bringing me to Sheridan College and doing their craft and design program back in the late 80s.
Wow. Yeah, there is something about blowing glass that's
It's pretty magical. It's
it's
pretty
pretty.
magical.
I was going to use the
And
word
once
awesome, but magical is probably
Yeah,
the word.
yeah, magical is it's like a dance. So once it takes time, but once you learn how to become fluid and you flow with material. I mean, I'm working with a viscous material that's 2100 degrees Fahrenheit. So it moves like honey, and yeah, it's a dance. And it's fun. Is the only reason I'm still doing it is because it's incredibly fun. Yeah, and diverse.
Beautiful. So glass blowing's not that common. You touched on some of the courses you've taken, but what about mentorship? Anybody that,
Well, I started at Pilchuck back in the day when Dale Chihuly was still there and his team, and it was kind of before glass. God, big. Chihuly really took it to the next level. When I ended up, I went for fusing, and then I got involved in a studio, and then life happened, and then I ended up going back. And when I went back to study glass blowing with Flora Mason, Joey Kirkpatrick, and that was the year that the Canadians were there. There was a lot of Canadians doing a lot of sessions, and I met Laura Donifer, and I guess you could say she was my mentor. She was my TA. She was from Ontario. She worked out at the Harbourfront Glass Studio. She taught at Sheridan College, and she just said, "You should move to Toronto and go to Sheridan. You can live with me and be my assistant." So that's what I did. And which was tricky because I had a very good, well-running stained glass business in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. We had a gallery that represented 45 different artists, and so yeah, I had to just like pull up my roots and move out. And that's when you find a passion, you just have to follow it sometimes. So that's what I did, and I moved to Toronto, and I went through Sheridan College, and then I did get a residency at Harbourfront Centre, and I was there for 3 years, and then I sat as their advisor for a number of years. I taught at Sheridan College after I graduated. I continued learning and developing. You can never stop learning. And I did summer workshops again back down to Pilchuck Glass School. And then I also went several times to Haystack Mountain School of Craft in Maine, Little Deer Isle on Maine, very magical place. And also at Penland School of Craft down in North Carolina. So I got around and I learned a lot, and was involved with a group of artists that got together that we called ourselves 10 North, and we put on exhibitions for the International Glass Conferences and did the SOFA show, which is the Sculptural Objects Functional Art Show down in Chicago. And, you know, picked up galleries, and it just kind of took off from there, really. You know, it's a lot of work and a lot of opportunities. I would say that I've been extremely lucky and was able to, 30 years ago, buy this property up in Apsley with my studio partner, Brad Copping. We were a couple at the time, but we're not anymore, but we're still sharing the studio and we're still very good friends, and working the studio up here. And yeah, very, very fortunate. Did workshops, you know, sort of all over the place, went and had a huge Canadian glass conference or exhibition in Belgium, in Lommel, Belgium. Brad co-curated that with Jeroen Mace, and went over and I did a 30-day residency there. And I work with many different styles. So I did a very large wire and glass piece for that exhibition. And yeah, glass kind of takes you all over. I've been a lot of places through conferences and just opportunities, really. One of the later ones that happened just a few years ago was actually it was during the pandemic. It was really awesome. I got a commission to do 7 groves. So I do these outdoor sculptures. So I do blown glass, and then I do these very large 8-foot multi-columned outdoor sculptures.
Which are gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a big shift getting into, you know, there was again opportunities. I started working on that series. I went for 15 years with a gallery, Option Art out of Montreal, to the SOFA Chicago show. It was the end of October every year. It's huge, huge international sculptural objects, functional art exhibition, made up of, yeah, galleries from all over the world. So I was really fortunate to have that opportunity, and at one of them, a museum in Grand Rapids suggested that I make an application for Art Prize. And not many Canadians know about Art Prize, but this was this was a crazy experience. So I did, you know, and I got into a space at the museum, and I did a forest of columns, and it was the largest installation that I had ever done. It was 36 columns. It took me over 6 months to do with one assistant, and yeah, it was crazy. Art Prize is a 14-day show where they have over 5,000 artists displaying in a 2-mile radius of downtown Grand Rapids. It's like just wild. Art is everywhere, and at the time, it was sponsored by one of the families from
Procter and Gamble.
No.
Ross.
Yeah, what is it? It's that home sales. Gosh, just totally slipped my mind. Amway. I think so.
Grand Rapids is a big soap city.
Yeah. And I had no idea that basically Grand Rapids is owned by these 2 families.
Yeah.
Did that. Anyway, super huge. And so it was a $350,000 cash prize for the top 10. It was divided, and it was all picked by popular vote. And so over 450,000 people saw the exhibition in 19 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I was only there for the first, I think we went down for 5 days, the opening, and then had to go back and pack it all up and ship it. But then, you know, I didn't sell anything, and I came in 5th in my area, which didn't get me into any money, but I had a lot of work. And so that year I shipped a whole skid down to the SOFA show and had a huge presence there. I had pieces in the public area plus in the booth, and we sold a lot down there, which was really fortunate because it cost me a small fortune to put that together. But it opened the doors, right? So there's always a door that opens, and it got me into making larger installations, and then from there I did a huge, large installation for the Winter Carnival in Ottawa, outdoor thing. Had to be lit and self-supporting and everything else for that carnival, and then the outdoor sculptures really started to take off. And then during the pandemic, I won a job, I guess you could say. I won a competition to do 7 groves for a new build at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona. So a new cancer center was built, and they had this sort of Zen garden, and all of the treatment rooms looked onto this garden. And so there was a grove of columns in front of each of the treatment centers. You couldn't actually walk through the garden. It was just one of those visual Zen sort of things, but really a great opportunity. And yeah, so that was a lot of work. That was a 2-year project from start to finish, and we went down and did the install, and yeah, it was another really great opportunity. So you never know when they're going to come. And the groves have done very well for me. I have a down in Georgia, there's a sculpture garden that has 3 groves of 7, so they've got 21 columns down there, and yeah, they get around. Keeps me busy.
Well, they're beautiful.
Thank you.
They really are. So blowing glass is a different kind of art form than, say, painting or watercolor or weaving. You need some very specific equipment, and you need, because you're blowing glass at a hot temperature. Tell me about some of the equipment, or tell us about some of the equipment and, the safety features that, I mean, you can't just fire up the oven.
Well,
It's more than that.
Fire up the oven, actually. So we built a glass furnace, and we run a 200-pound freestanding pot. So it's a large ceramic pot. It holds 200 pounds. We melt a glass that's made specifically for glass blowing. And they kind of look like little ice cubes. So we just melt an already made glass. We don't make glass from scratch. The color is separate, so we only melt clear glass. The color comes out of Germany. It used to come out of Germany and New Zealand, but now it just comes out of Germany. And so you buy you can't mix. I don't mix. I don't get into the chemistry. I just buy pure color, and you cut it. There's many ways you can add it to a piece of glass. And so we built the furnace. Let's see, we've been running the furnace here in Apsley for about 30 years. We've rebuilt it into the pot that we have, the freestanding pot, probably close to 20 years ago. And we've had to change the glass pot twice in that 20 years. It runs off of propane because that's where we are. And we run 3 months in the spring and 3 months in the fall. So we're down for our fall, winter, sort of Christmas break. We'll be back up again in March and run for 3 months. And then we're down for the summer. And then we light up for our annual studio tour, which is the 3rd week in September. So that's always the start of our season, the 3rd week of September, studio tour. It's a big deal up here. Brad demos. We set the studio up as a gallery. We have guest artists. My partner's a painter, David Smith. He has his studios in the basement of the house. He's a painter printmaker. We have a weaver and a metal worker also in the gardens, because I have very extensive gardens here. I'm a gardener as well, which is why I have florals. I'm very well known for my florals. I've done them for years. And also the garden sculptures are designed from nature for nature. It's, I've been growing my gardens here at 30 years old. 2 water features. So people love coming just to see the gardens. And then last year I broke my arm and decided that I was going to become a flower farmer. So I am now growing cut flowers, and because I don't have enough to do, but I seem to get it all done. And it's very exciting because I'm starting seeds already. I planted my Lysianthus yesterday.
So. Oh, good for you. Yeah, that's a great bloom.
Yeah.
So
we have a 200-pound pot furnace, and then we have what is referred to as a glory hole, which is just a barrel full of fire brick with a 250,000 BTU burner in it. And it runs around 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's where we reheat the glass. And then we have just 2 kilns for annealing. So once the piece is made, then it has to go into a kiln and it has to very slowly come down to room temperature. So we have a computer that controls the kilns that will bring the temperature down slowly overnight, basically. And then we have the cold shop. So that's the blowing, and then you have the finishing. So the studio in the cold shop has, grinding wheels for flattening. It has lathes for cutting and grinding bottoms and doing, Brad Copping's work is very textured and very carved. So he takes the blown pieces into the saw room. We have a room that's called the saw room. And he literally carves he treats it like wood. He carves all the surfaces with a diamond saw. And then we have the sandblasting room, and we have the belt sanders, and we have the hand tools. And then we have a wood shop that, because there's, for making molds or for carving poly pipe or crating, or there's always stuff that has to go on with that. And then the clean room, that is for, photography, photo shoots, packing, and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Okay, so what about ventilation?
Oh, yeah, we have a large ventilation system over the glory hole in the furnace.
I was going to say, because all that burning and heating has to create and, changing.
It's pretty warm. We have 14-foot ceilings in our hot shop, and we have a 12-foot garage door that we can open up, and it gets hot. That's why we don't blow in the summertime. And then it is very physical, and the glass furnace runs 24/7, and the glory hole only gets turned on when you're working. So, when you work 7 days a week for 3 months, you kind of want a break. So,
yeah.
And we do a lot of parts. So we make a lot of stuff. And then we spend the 3 months kind of finishing. Brad also works in a sculptural way. I'm starting to work in more lighting. So, I do grove assemblages and working on lighting, and there's lots to do when we're not actually blowing the glass, because we blow a lot of glass and then we work it, ship it, find homes for it, market it.
Yeah, the business of art, which
business. Yeah, it is a business, and as having had a business for a very long time, you wear all the hats. So you are the accountant, you are the person that does inventory, make sure all your supplies are there, and takes care of all the shipping, packing, and shipping. So yeah, it's a full-time deal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And the valuing of an inspiration or an idea, like the monetizing of an inspiration or an idea. You can't just always be inspired. You have to sell it, and you have to sell it to earn a living.
Well, glass blowing is very expensive. When you think about, we go through the biggest bullet of propane every 3 weeks. You can imagine it's very expensive. So that's the other reason why we really pack it in 3 months and
take it out. Yeah.
And
making a working business model. Good on you.
Well, it would be, in this climate, I'm very grateful and fortunate that, I did start 30 years ago. The studio here, and land values were cheaper then, and there is no way. Once I finished Harbourfront, I was part of a cooperative studio down in Wooler, Cold Creek Hot Glass.
Mm-hmm.
And we ran the studio there for a few years after I was out of Harbourfront. And then we actually moved that studio to our studio because the ventilation wasn't good there. And we bought this place in Apsley that had the perfect building, like the studio's larger than the house here. So it was like the perfect building for a hot glass studio. And it was also a time when, you could get grants. You can't anymore, but you could back then get grants to help you pay for ventilation systems and some equipment, that you can't do anymore. And I certainly wouldn't be in the position I'm in if I didn't have the studio on my own property. And,
Yeah.
that's an absolute, like, I know it's very, very difficult for emerging artists right now because it costs too much to live. And, just unless, yeah, it's very, very hard. I mean, like, I don't live high on the hog. I don't drive new cars and I don't go on vacation, but I love what I do and I love my garden, and that's all I really need. I don't have desires to take winter vacation. I love winter actually. And yeah, I travel for work when it's a write-off and I have to travel.
Yeah.
That's the way I do it.
Yeah. Good on you. Good on you. Um, can you share with us one, you may have already done this, share with us one particularly satisfying installation?
Um, well, the experience in Belgium was pretty cool. Because Glazenhuis, which is in Lommel, which is outside of Antwerp, by about an hour, is this glass center. And it is this very large glass cube. And then coming through the center of the glass cube is this very tall glass pointy tower. And it has spiral staircases that go up to a platform. And it's the tallest thing in Lommel. And you can see everything. And then that cone goes through the glass cube, which is the gallery, and through the floor into the basement gallery, which is also where the glass studio is. And there's a glass wall separating the gallery from the glass studio. And we did a Canadian exhibition in there where I made a 5 foot tall wire and glass structure. It was a very large perfume bottle that was a split circle. And it was the largest wire piece I had ever done. It had a welded steel frame, and it took me. I had a residency. We were in Belgium for a month, and we had 3 days off. Basically, it was a push to have that piece finished for the exhibition, and there was a bit of mimicking the form of the tower because the stopper, so it had a glass core, which I blew there. It was a very large perfume bottle, I guess you could say, with this tower that sort of mimicked the tower coming up from the building. And so that was really exciting, being able to work on that scale. Meanwhile, Brad had also a residency, and what he did is in the tower, he talks about history in the land a lot in his work, and he made a white pine. So he made like over 3,000 pine needles, and all clear glass. It was really beautiful. And so as you went up, so you go up one spiral staircase, there's a platform, and then you come down the other one, so that so as you were going up, there was very old surveyor's tape lines that sort of spanned that, and these pine needles hung off of it. So the form was like a giant white pine. It was very beautiful. But there was also some fantastic work from Ione Thorkelson out of Manitoba. There was, it was just Kevin Lockout. It was just some really beautiful work. And a lot of the artists came over for the opening. And everybody rides bikes there. And, of course, they've got 400 different varieties of beers. And so
Beautiful
there was
bread.
the bread. And in Lommel, they had this market that came through every Wednesday. And it's like unbelievable. So these semi trucks pull in, and they open up, and one just has barbecue chicken, like they load it all up, and the rotisters are going around, and there's one that's just a fish store and one that's just a cheese store, and they love their cold cuts, right? So you go and get your fresh bread, and you go out and you buy all this stuff for lunch, and it was amazing. Why we don't do that here for farmers markets is beyond me, because that was amazing. And it came to town every Wednesday, and people came out. And then of course there was also the craftspeople would bring their stuff out, because everybody would be out shopping, and it was just it was really great. And the opening was 3 days long, and yeah, people came. The opening was really quite amazing, and there was free beer flowing for 3 days. It was amazing. They're very generous over there, and
Yes.
and it was really lovely. And then we did manage to go back again and do a little bit more exploring in Belgium and going to Bruges, and Brussels, and yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much history there, and there's,
Oh, there is.
so
And what's
walkable and
really fascinating is the glass. So they have this very pure white sand there, and they dig the sand to make the glass. And then they have these huge, huge pits, which they fill with water. So this is kind of like their idea of cottage country and lake life is so different from here. I mean, I live in the North Kawarthas. I live in cottage country. I don't live on the lake. I live on the road to the lake. But there they everybody goes to these cottage, and so they have these huge pits where they've taken all the sand to make glass, and they're filled with water, and they build these cottage places, and they're these wonderful brick buildings that are all very private but also connected, and there's no cars. You can only ride bikes in there. And then in the center they have the water park and the bakery and the restaurant, and it's full on entertainment. But then there's bicycle paths everywhere. So you just hop on your bike and you go to, some abbey and check out the beer they've made there. And it's just a really cool sort of lifestyle. And they have sheep that keep the grass down. So you'll be sitting out on your deck and these strange sheep come walking by because they're the lawnmowers. And that was really a fun installation, that Canadian.
I can see why that would be
Yeah.
in the top 5 of your favorites.
Yeah. And there was some really great. So Jocelyn Prince, who's a Canadian glass artist living and working in the States, she teaches, I think, at Risley or something, somewhere down in the States. And she came, and she's a performance glass artist. So she was doing this. She would cast hot glass and then put very loud speakers on top of it so that it would record the vibration of the sound. And that was really fascinating. That was really fascinating. And the music was so loud that they blew the speakers, or the heat, or something kind of went wrong. But it was it was pretty exciting. And then another artist was there, and she was part of a glass circus. Again, she went through Sheridan, and then she went down and studied in the States, and she got involved with this group that was the Glass Circus. So there was a bit of a circus performance in the Glass Studio, which was a lot of fun.
There are so many outlets for your art form. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, if you ever watch Blown Away, which is on Netflix, and
Okay.
it is a competition, sort of a reality competition, and it actually was filmed in Hamilton. The
Okay.
students at Sheridan College, the graduates were the assistants, and the school was responsible for helping build all the equipment and see over it. And the hostess, Catherine Gray, I was at Harbourfront with. We were very, very good friends. And so it's always very interesting to see. I went down when I did an installation in Palm Desert, and she runs the glass program at University of California, San Bernardino. So I went and I did a workshop down there for her class, and so yeah, Blown Away did a lot to bring glass to the forefront. Although it doesn't give you the full picture, but it definitely gave you an idea of things that can happen in glass. And yeah, there's so much.
Yeah, there is. There really is. I think we could talk all afternoon. I think art is, well, I know a lot of people find art is fascinating, and the places that we find art around us, whether it's glass or a sculpture in a park, or a game with some children, it's all creative outlets that we all, whether we feel them, see them, or acknowledge them, there's lots of creative outlets that we as humans and as women enjoy every day. I really
And there's
appreciate.
also a lot of opportunity. Like, I mean, I taught for 18 years up in Halliburton. So Halliburton does offer a 15-week intensive glass blowing program that runs through the winter, like starts in January, goes to April. And I taught up there for 18 years. I just kind of retired 2 years ago. Actually, Aiden was in the last class that I taught there. And Aiden is my new assistant. He's worked for me this past season, which was really, really great. And yeah, I mean, that's a really nice opportunity to get a sense of the material in a small, sort of low key environment, which is really nice
Yeah,
versus
yeah,
going
and
to
it's a
university.
fabulous campus to begin with
Yeah,
many opportunities,
yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Blacksmithing. Yeah, all of the programs that are up
all
there
of
are
the
really great.
programs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, as I said, we could talk all afternoon. What I like to do is end with some rapid fire questions. If that's something you're game for, then
Sure. With you, when you sent me your little thing, it's like, oh, okay, I don't know. Okay. Sure, we'll see what
okay.
happens. I may not. You may like whew, over my head with some of these, but
I don't think so. I don't think so.
okay.
Okay. Number one, wine or beer?
Well, I'm on class floor. You have to have a cold beer in the hot shop. That's a given. That cold beer after a hot day in the shop is important.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine. Sandals or runners?
Neither, actually. I prefer a really good supportive Chelsea boot.
Okay, perfect. When I interviewed the folks at Grady's Shoes, I asked one of my questions was Birkenstock or Blundstone, and and Kelly said, Janet, that's like asking me to choose one of my children. You
Well, the funny thing is, talk about safety in the studio. When I learned how to blow glass, the official outfit in any hot shop anywhere in the world was, of course, open-toed Birkenstock sandals. That was it. Everybody wore Birkenstocks. Everybody. And then, of course, things have changed a lot.
yeah.
And there's no, safety doesn't allow you to wear any open toes or
Well, I'm listening to
yeah.
you say that and I'm thinking, all that hot stuff and you've got open toes? But
You know what? You burn yourself once and you realize it's really hot. You don't burn yourself again. I mean, I worked for years and, I think there was only one incident where some boiling water landed on somebody's foot. But,
oh,
really. I mean, I know it's good to be safe. I made it this far.
yeah,
And,
good.
yeah, yeah. It's a litigation thing, I think, more than anything. This craziness with the safety. And yeah, you should be safe for sure, but you should be more aware. If you have to be aware too. And now people are not as anyway. We don't need to go there. Okay, any more questions?
Okay, Morris or Singletary?
I don't know what you're talking about. Are you talking about football or something there? I'm
No,
not quite
those are, though I understand those are both glass artists.
okay. Oh, okay. Um, well, Billy, really. I mean, they're both very good. Um, you know, Bill was at Pilchuck when I learned how to blow glass, and Karen Willenbrink is I also have learned a lot from her, and she was the colorist for Bill. And
So I'm asking you to
but
choose one of your children.
the stuff that the other guy. I mean, it's really hard to compare because there's the native influence and being able to explore his culture through glass, which is really important. Whereas Bill, he explored culture in his glass, but it wasn't his culture.
Okay.
So he would borrow from other cultures into his work, whereas Singleton, that's his culture that he's putting into glass. So they're very different. But it's interesting because I didn't really know who and I looked it up, and they were football players when I called it up online.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, football players? Like, I don't know anything about football. But if you're talking about the glass people, then yeah, for sure. They both sort of deal culturally. Bill doesn't do it anymore. Hasn't for years. But yeah, they have their own thing.
Beautiful.
Bill really did a lot, and I did a lot of drawing on surfaces that I got from Bill for sure. From watching him do his surfaces, that was one of a big influences on my early work, and then that evolved into the surface work that I'm doing today. But it really all started with powder pickups that I watched and actually, nerve-wrackingly ran doors for him at Pilchuck. So, yeah.
Cool. Stilton or Oka? I hear you're
Oh,
a good cook.
Stilton for sure. You got to get good blue. You always need a good blue on a cheese plate.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Pen or pencil?
Um, my preferred is actually charcoal.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
like
I guess
charcoal.
that's a pencil.
Yeah, well, lead, yeah, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah, it's some kind of pencil. Okay. Yeah, because you
beautiful.
can smear it.
Susan, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today. Fascinating. We could talk all afternoon, and your work is beautiful, and I congratulate you on being known all around the world and having installations in beautiful places, making our world more
Closest
beautiful.
installation is over in Fenland Falls because I have a grove of 10 in their rain garden.
Oh, okay. We're in
Yeah.
Finland.
Yeah, in Fenland, along the locks. It's right in front
Okay.
of the museum. There's a rain garden there, and there was a competition again a few years back, and I won. There was two sculptures put in the rain garden, and one of them is mine. So
Beautiful.
it's really nice to
Okay.
see
Good to
locally. Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Fenland Falls, folks. Thank you very much for watching Chez Les Fleur today. If you are joining us for the first time, we welcome you. Please come back and watch us again. If you're a returning guest, we appreciate seeing you and your support of this podcast. We love hearing what women are doing in their businesses. We love the challenges, the ups, the downs, the ins and outs, the happiness, the sadness. And Sue, I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to see us, and keep on keeping on. Good on you.
Thank you.